Most people expect to lose things when their life falls apart. What they don't expect is to lose them when it's finally getting better. In 2008, I met the man who would become my husband. For the first time in my adult life, I had found something that felt safe, something that felt like mine. And that's when some of the people who had known me for 20 years disappeared. Not because I had done anything wrong, not because I had become someone unrecognizable, but because I had chosen a new life, and some of them just couldn't follow me into it. There was no funeral for those friendships, no sympathy cards, nobody even asked how I was doing. They just left. And they took something with them. I didn't quite have words for that yet. They took witnesses, the people who knew every version of me, the people who could say, I remember when. I survived losses people could see. It was the invisible ones that nearly broke me. But before I lost the friendships, before I lost the career, before I lost the version of myself I had spent a lifetime becoming, let me tell you who she was. For almost 30 years, I was the person people called when something needed to be fixed. I worked in healthcare leadership for most of those years, revenue cycle. Carried teams of up to 70, even 90 people, multi-state operations, out-of-country operations, the kind of pressure that never fully releases. I walked into meetings already knowing the answer. I organized complexity when everyone else was still trying to understand the problem. I pulled days in accounts receivable down by 38 days in just 3 months, and I was really good at it. Not because I was special, but because I had been training for it my entire life. I grew up in a home where I learned very early to read the temperature of a room before I walked into it. I learned to watch, to anticipate, to become capable before I was ever even old enough to need to do that. I was a mother before I turned age 20. I buried my firstborn son. I survived marriages that nearly broke me, and I rebuilt every single time. And somewhere in all of that, I became addicted to something. I didn't even recognize it as an addiction. I became addicted to being needed, not to work, to responsibility. Because being the capable one, being the one everyone could count on, was the only version of safe I had ever known. In July of 2014, I sat at my computer late at night and typed a resignation letter. Not because I wanted to leave my job, not because I had something better waiting, but because my family was about to be homeless in days. 2 veterans, no emergency assistance, no family nearby, out by Monday. And in that letter, even as I was losing everything, I was apologizing for leaving without notice, for what this would mean for my team, and for not being able to finish what I had started. I wrote, I have done everything in my power to fix this situation. And I had. I always did. That's who I was, the strong one, the one who fixed things, the one who carried it so no one else had to. I was the one who wrote apology emails from the edge of homelessness. The thing that goes through my mind about that period of time in my life is that I was running on survival mode for decades, in a body that would keep the receipts. I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly feel sick. It was more like the sharpness I had always counted on started taking longer to arrive. The memory, the speed, the ability to organize 100 things at once, the pain that started staying, the exhaustion that sleep just couldn't fix, the fog that settled over a mind that used to be my most reliable tool. I was eventually diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and when my rheumatologist told me that chronic stress and trauma can awaken conditions like this, that the body stores everything the mind survived, I didn't feel surprised. I finally felt seen. For the first time in a very, very, very long time, someone was telling me that I was experiencing made sense. Everything that I had been going through finally made sense. Why I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and experiencing all of the pain and fatigue and everything that goes along with that. My body was not betraying me. It was finally telling the truth. The hardest loss wasn't the career, though. It wasn't even the friendships. It was her. The version of me who could walk into any room and hold it together. Who could problem solve under pressure without breaking a sweat. Who kept every system running and every person supported and still showed up the next morning ready to do it again. I didn't just lose a job. I lost the proof that I mattered. My entire identity. Everything I had been building since childhood was tied to what I could do for other people. And when I could no longer do it at the same level, I didn't know who I was anymore. My therapist asked me once, what would your life look like if you could have done it any way you wanted, right now at this very moment? And after decades of being the one who figured everything out for everyone else, my answer was quite simple. I want to stay home with my son. I want to stop fighting. I want to finally breathe. That was the first honest thing I had said in years. Maybe you're watching this because you have fibromyalgia. Or maybe you're watching this because you don't. Maybe your story looks nothing like mine. Different loss, different body, different life. But maybe you know what it feels like to have built everything around being useful. And then you find yourself in a season where you simply can't anymore. Maybe you know what it feels like to grieve a version of yourself that nobody else knew you were even losing. To be strong for everyone and quietly falling apart at the same time. Maybe you've written your own version of a resignation letter from a marriage, your career, a friendship, another version of yourself, while still apologizing for the inconvenience it caused to others. If any part of this is landing, keep watching, because the rest of the story is about to show you what's happening next, and it's not what I had expected. Here's what nobody tells you about finally letting yourself rest. It doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels very suspicious. A body trained for decades in output mode doesn't naturally know how to be still. It keeps waiting for the next thing, scanning for what it's missing, and it doesn't quite trust it. It doesn't trust the silence. It doesn't trust the rest. I had to learn, slowly and not gracefully, that rest was not failure. That staying home to be present for my son was not giving up, but it was just the beginning of doing better. That building a life around the reality of my body instead of constantly fighting it was not weakness. It was the bravest thing I had ever done, because I had spent my entire life being strong for everyone else. And learning to be that for myself in a completely different way was something I had never been taught. Right now, in this season of my life, I'm building things. Not at full speed, not without pain, not even without the former me in the way that I used to build them, but real things. My son in the next room continues to build out 3D worlds on his computer, learning in a way that finally fits who he is. And I am here, writing, creating, building something that didn't exist this morning and will still be here tomorrow. Neither of us is moving at the same speed that the world expects us to, but we're both still creating one piece at a time. And I have learned finally, and not easily, that 4 good hours can be enough to build a life. The goal was never getting back to who I was. The goal is learning how to live as the woman I am becoming. I am not healed, I am not fixed, and I'm certainly not back to my old self. I'm still learning, I'm still building, and I'm still here. So if you're someone who is standing in the space between who you used to be and who you are becoming, you are in the right place. This series is called The Body Keeps the Receipts, and this is only the beginning.